to reinvigorate or re-energize the economy for a perspective on the paper titled Economic Transformation, Inclusive Growth and Competitiveness Towards an Economic Strategy for South Africa. We're joined via Skype by Senior Research Fellow at Trade Collective, Lebohang Pheko. Ms. Pheko, thank you, as always, for your time. So this plan, among other things, is an attempt to translate, the broad outcomes of inclusive growth and economic transformation. On the face of it, are you convinced? Lebohang Pheko, can you hear Johannesburg? You're live on the agenda.
Yes, I can. Thank you. Yes, I can. Good morning, all.
Yeah, very good morning to you, Lebohang. Let me just recap the question. So this plan, among other things, is an attempt to translate, the broad outcomes of inclusive growth and economic transformation. So I'm asking you, on the face of it, are you convinced?
Look, there's nothing fresh or there's nothing new in this particular plan, right? It talks a lot about growth orientation. It talks about a policy agenda that has to be accompanied by interventions that change the benefits of growth. So, talking about a redistributive growth track, economic transformation, rapid and fundamental changes in the systems and patterns of ownership and control. We've heard similar language to this previously, especially with the National Development Plan, which promised us a whole new overhaul of our economic system by 2030. And there hasn't really been much movement in that regard. And I think what would be useful is to understand why this is now being shifted to this new, not so new growth pattern, and whether or not it has really actually had a real impact on labor, on the private sector, on employment patterns, and if not, why not? What we really need is a new social compact between the various actors of the economy, a bottom-down movement-based, people's movement, the unions, the workers, the private sector, and businesses, entrepreneurship, and the education sector, I would also argue, because obviously we need a new form of education which is going to be able to produce different kind of workers and different kind of a workforce which can also work for itself and be very, very versatile. So there isn't anything very fresh and new in this.
You say we've heard this language before. Translating the broad outcomes into specific programs, that will be key, because the language can be good, but there needs to be it needs to be practical and realistic as well.
Yes, so there are a few key issues. Firstly, electricity and the spectre of Eskom and unbundling re-emerges in this particular program. Telecommunications and competitiveness of our telecom sector also re-emerges in this particular program. Transport regulation, a lot of language around reducing the barriers of entry to companies and trying to deal with distorted patterns of ownership. I don't think that we have really been able to deal with that, especially the race-based inequality and access to the economy, access to collateral capital, access to the means and the means to actually migrate from one economic level to another economic level for businesses in this country, especially Black African-owned businesses. And then there's also a whole bunch around creating an important environment, an enabling environment for agriculture. And I think that there hasn't been enough said in our previous programs, economic programs around agriculture. But I think that this is really a consolidation of what has been said before, and also linked with a lot of the zeitgeist around land redistribution, agriculture, and catching the streams of the current politics and the current conversation and consolidating them into quite a huge 75-pager of what we hope would be interesting things. But there's these scenarios which also have been mapped out, short-term, medium-term, and long-term scenarios of what needs to happen over the next 5, 10, and 20 years. And we're hoping that, what I'm hoping is that this will also lead to much greater accountability and give us all a way in which we can assess year to year, linked to the fiscus, linked to the budget, whether or not all of this is actually happening.
Yeah. Look, it's a 77-page document, so we'll really need to look at it very carefully and pick out, the parts that will work here in South Africa. Would you say, though, if you look back, that the weak growth here in South Africa over the past, let's say, 6 years is a function of both cyclical and structural factors?
Yeah, so I mean, the structural...
Ms. Pheko, go ahead.
The structural backlog is quite significant. And I think that the structural backlog is also is to do with the sort of economics that we emerged from post-1994, which actually meant that there was a glut of unemployment and a mismatch. We keep talking about a mismatch between the sort of skills that we have and the skills that we need. We also had people who are not only underskilled but inappropriately skilled for this sort of economy. The second piece of that is, of course, that our own fiscal and was very linked to a trickle-down theory, which really hasn't been effective.
Yeah, I'm just looking at
the idea that there is a way in which people can actually access the economy based on purely private investment, purely foreign direct investment, has not been effective at all. So we really need a much more indigenous, homegrown way of dealing with these structural issues and enabling the economy an economy that is driven by entrepreneurship and business and an enabling environment which is South Africa driven, rather than waiting for the largesse of international investors.
Yeah, and look, no doubt access is key. I'm just looking at South Africa's position in the global competitive ranking, which fell from 44 to 67th between 2007 and 2018. I guess political turmoil, drought, and most recently load shedding has been cited as factors that exacerbated the depth of the slowdown. So I guess a all-hands-on-deck approach is needed to get us back on track and, chip away at this 29% unemployment rate.
Yeah, 29% if you use the official statistics, and of course a lot closer to about 42% if you use, a different set of data, including people who just have given up on looking forward. So I think that's, if you look at any street in Johannesburg, Durban, Cape Town, Limpopo, anywhere across this country, we can see that we can see with our own eyes that the figures are much higher. And I think that we also need to do something about what we define as being employed and being occupied, because in an environment and in a context where, and this is not only South Africa, across the African continent, 80%, up to 80% of people, especially young people, your prime workforce between ages of 15 and 45 are either unemployed or not officially employed. And I think that, this whole, what I've been coining as the hustle economy, is something that we need to look at very carefully. What people call informal is actually becoming the de facto mainstream economy for many people across the continent, including in this country. So the people that we see at the traffic lights daily are part of participating in the economy in various ways, and we need to up our, lift our vocabulary, and our policy making needs to catch up with that reality.
Yeah, still lots of work to be done in order to get this country's motor running efficiently. Thank you very much indeed for your perspective. Senior Research Fellow at Trade Collective, Lebohang Pheko. Thank you very much indeed for your perspective. We really appreciate it. Desiree?